just helping his ex, until I found her name on the lease to our new apartment. The train doors bang shut with a hollow boom, and for one vertiginous second I think the noise has cracked my ribs. I clutch the edge of my suitcase, the plastic handle slick with nervous sweat, and force myself not to look back at the platform. If I allow even a glimpse, one sentimental glance at the skyline or the people shuffling newspapers behind the glass, I will start rationalizing, and rationalizing is the first mile on the highway back to Jake. My phone buzzes again in my coat pocket, the bright rectangle screaming, "Jake, home." I don't answer. Instead, I thumb the power button until the screen goes black, because silence right now is the only oxygen mask I can trust. Tucked between the pages of my dog-eared notebook is the evidence of my own blindness, the final lease packet printed just an hour ago after I hijacked the real estate office copier. The sheets are still warm, almost pulsing, as if they too are alive with betrayal. 3 names, bold and centered, the typographic equivalent of a slap. Jacob Miller, Sophia Reyes, Emily Carter. My name in 3rd position, like a latecomer to my own life. They hadn't even bothered to alphabetize us. He must have told the broker the order didn't matter. A conductor weaves past, muttering about tickets. I nod, show the e-pass on my screen, and wonder whether he sees fugitives every day or only recognizes them in the movies. Maybe he thinks my puffy eyes come from an early alarm, not from watching the man I loved lean over a mahogany conference table and sign a future that had no room for honesty. The train jolts. My suitcase wheels skid. I wedge myself into a corner between 2 glossy safety posters and breathe in the sterile air that smells of metal, coffee, and other people's departures. 72 hours earlier, escape was the furthest word from my mind. Jake and I were seated at Violetta's, that cramped Italian place under the Williamsburg Bridge, where fairy lights crawl across the ceiling like constellations designed by someone with ADHD. We had a ritual there, 1 shared plate of linguine, 1 bottle of Barbera, 1 argument about which jazz standard the house trio would massacre next. That night the saxophone did Misty, and Jake leaned in with conspiratorial glee. "Picture it," he said, eyes glowing. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, the cat finally getting a window ledge worthy of her ego. I toasted to that future as if it were already framed on the wall. Jake paid the bill with the same card he uses for everything, the one he named Big Boy in his digital wallet because he said adulthood should feel fun. While he signed, I scrolled my email and saw the broker's message. "Glad you're moving forward. Let me know a time to finalize signatures." I typed, "Tomorrow works." Jake cheered. We clinked the cheap wine glasses loud enough that neighboring tables applauded. A little theater never hurt romance. If the evening had ended there, we would have been a corny couple with busker-level taste in jazz. But as we put on our coats, Jake's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and made a face so quick I almost missed it, a cross between remorse and responsibility. I saw the name before he flipped the phone. Sophia. He murmured, "Sorry, it's her." "I'll keep it short." My stomach sank. Sophia's calls had become a dull constant, background radiation I pretended was harmless. Jake had a way of sanding down my doubts until they felt petty, then hugging me for being so understanding. 48 hours before everything detonated, I woke to the smell of grapefruit and jasmine drifting from our ensuite bathroom. On the counter sat a luxury perfume bottle, opaque glass, gold cap, barely used. I touched it like it might burn. My collection topped out at drugstore body sprays. Nothing this expensive had ever visited our sink. Jake, brushing his teeth, shrugged. "Oh, that," he said around minty foam. "Soph left it in my car last week. Figured you might like it." He kissed my forehead. The scent lingered all day, a phantom hand resting on my shoulder. That evening we hosted our friends for board game night. The apartment was a chaos of cardboard tiles and beer cans. During a lull, Sarah, my college roommate turned amateur therapist, pulled me aside. "You look off," she whispered. I joked about sleep debt. Sarah's gaze drifted to the perfume bottle now perched on a side table. She raised an eyebrow but chose silence. Sarah always chooses silence until the silence can't carry itself, and then she detonates truth like a confession booth charge. I loved her for that, even when I wasn't ready to hear it. 24 hours before the truth bared teeth, I logged into our joint checking account to schedule the rent payment we had proudly saved for. I blinked at the screen. A withdrawal of $5,000 already sat in processing status. Time-stamped 2 days prior, memo. Hold deposit, East River Park Lofts, Unit 3B. My chest tightened. We were supposed to tour Unit 3B today, decide together, not place money on it in the past tense. I texted Jake a screenshot. Three dots of his reply pulsed for ages before the bubble appeared, just locking it in so no one swipes it. You trust me, right? He brought breakfast bagels flavored like apologies and kissed my cheek twice. Once for real, and once for show. I nodded because nodding was simpler than cross-examination, and I was addicted to the fantasy of hardwood floors and exposed brick. 3 hours before the lease meeting, Jake announced he would run a desk to Goodwill, the same battered writing desk Sophia supposedly abandoned. He promised he'd meet me at the broker's office with coffee. The coffee was leverage. He knew I'd do almost anything for a vanilla latte. After he left, the apartment felt too large, as if removing his presence shifted the physics of space. I opened his laptop intending to cue a playlist for later celebration. Chrome restored a tab I hadn't seen before, Gmail showing an email thread spanning 3 weeks. The first message from Jake to the broker read, "We want joint tenancy." Subsequent messages included PDF drafts where tenant lines listed Jacob Miller and Sophia Reyes. One email from Sophia said, "Thanks for including M. She seems sweet. She wrote my nickname like we were brunch buddies." The newest attachment, final lease. 3B, signable. PDF, double asterisk. I downloaded it with hands suddenly made of ice. Page 2 was a neat chart of responsibilities. Jake covering 60%, Sophia 30, me 10. My voice cracked inside my skull. I printed the file at the corner copy shop, walked back numbly, gathered the essentials: toothbrush, laptop, sweater, the graduation photo of my dad and me. I hailed a cab to the broker's address Jake had forwarded. On the ride, I practiced sentences that alternated between polite curiosity and arson. My reflection in the cab window looked older, as if betrayal accelerated aging. Inside the real estate office, fluorescent lights hummed over beige cubicles. A receptionist asked if I had an appointment. I said I was a signer, waved the PDF like a backstage pass. Down the hall, I heard Jake's laugh, his warm volcanic laugh, followed by a softer voice that could only be Sophia's. I rounded the corner. They were seated side by side at a glass conference table piled with documents. Jake in his navy pea coat, hair tousled like he'd sprinted through ideas rather than wind. Sophia in a mustard sweater hugging her arms, her posture leaning toward his in muscle memory. The broker pointed at signature flags. Jake twirled a pen. Sophia smiled and nudged him the way I once did when he contemplated dessert. The ache behind my eyes threatened to swallow vision itself. I walked in without knocking. Jake's pen froze midair. Sophia registered me with a polite smile that fractured when recognition set in. The broker started a greeting. I placed the printed email thread on the table. It shook only slightly. "I believe," I said, the syllables tasting like chrome. "There's been a clerical error involving my life." Silence. Then the broker flicked pages, her neutral mask cracking. Jake recovered first, launching into damage control. He hadn't wanted to stress me. Temporary arrangement. Sophia couldn't afford a solo lease just yet. We could be a community. Modern families are flexible. Each phrase felt cut from a blog post about millennials redefining love. Sophia stared at the tabletop, blinking as if each new word stung dust from her eyes. I asked if she knew I was paying 10% to inhabit my own future. She did not answer. The broker excused herself to consult compliance. As soon as the door clicked, the dam burst. Jake reached for my hand. I jerked back. "You lied," I said. He countered with a quiver in his voice I had only heard when his cat died. "I couldn't abandon her," he said. "Not after everything." Questions formed faster than my lungs could supply breath. Did Sophia know about the deposit? Yes. Did she plan to live in the master bedroom? Temporary, he insisted. My mouth tasted like pennies. Sophia finally spoke, her voice small but steady. She had offered to stay elsewhere if I was uncomfortable, but Jake insisted the three of us could afford a bigger space, that it was the progressive choice. Her gaze darted to mine. "I'm not here to steal him," she said. I was trying not to drown. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wondered if players in a fraud can truly know which lines they authored. I felt the floor tilt. I said I needed air. Jake begged. To discuss, to compromise, to start over. I stepped out, rode the elevator to the lobby, walked straight into a printing center, and paid to scan the lease to myself with my signature scrawled over the words, "Void, void, void." I sent it to Jake, CC'd the broker, BCC'd myself for the inevitable courtroom reenactment. Sarah texted asking about game night photos. I replied with a single image of Jake and Sophia side by side, signing, caption, "Plot twist." Then I bought the first one-way train ticket north. A taxi carried me to Penn Station. My suitcase, a dinosaur print carry-on I bought on a dare, thumped over cracks in the sidewalk like a drum counting down. During the ticket queue, I wrote the Reddit title, fingers trembling on the tiny keyboard. He said he was just helping his ex, until I found her name on the lease to our new apartment. The upvote arrow felt like a life raft. I told myself I would post after the train started moving. Committing the story before physically leaving might turn me to salt, like Lot's wife. Now the train speeds along iron arteries toward Connecticut, maybe Boston, maybe the Atlantic Ocean for all I know. Jake's calls keep stacking. Voicemails ping in clusters. First apologetic, then defensive, then angry that I'm humiliating him by ghosting. The latest text reads, "Soph had nowhere to go. You're making this a thing it isn't." My reply is a screenshot of the rent split spreadsheet coloring my cell red. No words. Let the math indict him. Sarsh, edit. Posting this from the cafe car because Wi-Fi finally cooperated. To everyone DMing. Yes, I canceled my share of the utilities before boarding. Yes, my credit card company will dispute any deposit he tries to stick me with. No, I don't think Sophia is evil. I think desperation hitchhiked on Jake's savior complex until it crashed into my life. Edit again. Keys, broker just emailed. She cannot proceed without all parties present. She attached a blank withdrawal consent form. Jake must refund the deposit or forfeit it himself. My seat neighbor, an elderly man reading a spy novel, just offered me half his Kit Kat when he saw me wipe tears. Kindness from strangers is the plot armor of the betrayed. I scroll Twitter to distract myself. Sophia has protected her account, but cached previews show she tweeted 3 hours ago. Sometimes you sign things you wish were stories instead. Her words float in my brain like an icicle. Does she feel used too? The triangle we built is less love and more a geometry proof gone wrong. The sun sets through the smudged window, painting rust over river water. I remember the first time Jake told me he loved me. We were at a Halloween party dressed as mismatched superheroes. I was Black Widow. He was Spider-Man because his sister sewed the suit for him in college. After midnight, he tugged off the mask, cheeks flushed from dancing, and blurted, "I think you might be my person." I laughed, asked if relationships were his version of the Avengers Initiative. He said yes, but smaller scale. Just 2 heroes against the chaos. It felt epic then. Now it feels like fan fiction I outgrew. The phone buzzes with an unknown number. I answer on reflex. It's the landlord of the East River Lofts, voice smooth as elevator music. She says she heard there was confusion, that she values transparency, that if I wish to sign solo, she can offer a smaller unit, 2C, same view, rent discounted for promptness. It takes my brain 4 full seconds to comprehend the lifeline. Yes, I say. Yes, please send details. She emails paperwork immediately. I open it. My name owns the single tenant line. The zeros at the bottom look like little portals to someplace sane. When the train pulls into New Haven, I drag my suitcase onto the platform with renewed purpose. I have cousins here who will let me crash for a weekend. My last voicemail to Jake is a recording of the platform announcements clanging over my voice. I will pick up the rest of my things next Tuesday at noon. Please be out. No goodbye. No apology for the train fare on our shared credit card. I transferred my half to cover it. 1 week later, update post. I signed the lease for 2C. The broker waived the application fee after hearing my story. There is a single skylight that pools dawn across my pillow. I bought a $20 dining chair at a thrift store and call it a throne. Sarah shipped me a doormat that reads, "Boundaries live here." Tonight I made pasta for one and ate every strand loud like a celebration. Commenters ask about Jake. Apparently he posted a rebuttal in r/relationships saying I overreacted to a harmless logistical hiccup. The top response quotes my original post and ends with, "Hiccups don't last 3 weeks and cost $5,000, bro." Sophia hasn't posted. Rumor has it she moved into a sublet uptown with 2 other women and a rescue dog named Kiwi. I hope the dog loves grapefruit jasmine perfume. The apartment echoes at night, a canyon of fresh possibilities. Sometimes I catch myself listening for Jake's laugh the way a diver listens for pressure changes. Something primal and necessary. When the silence rushes in instead, I cycle through Spotify playlists until the ache eases. Therapy appointments are booked. The first one is Monday. I am not fine. But fine is no longer a prerequisite for being alive. Final edit. The lease for 3B fell through. The landlord kept Jake's deposit after learning he misrepresented occupancy. He emailed me at 2 Millie, apologizing for letting my fear of letting go dictate my actions. I archived the email without reading past the first line. I don't hate him. Hate is an iron lung trapping the wounded. I simply refuse to be the collateral in someone else's heroic narrative. 3 weeks post-train and 2 days post-first therapy session, I walk across the Brooklyn Bridge alone at sunset, because the therapist suggested reclaiming spaces with new memories. The bridge used to be Jake's favorite Sunday ritual. Coffee in a thermos, camera slung over his neck, both of us competing to catch the first light hitting water like molten bronze. Today I bring only a disposable film camera I bought from a street vendor. The viewfinder is tiny and unforgiving. I snap 8 crooked photos of sky, cables, and my own uncertain grin, proof that the world keeps spinning without permission slips. Halfway across, my phone vibrates with a notification. Sophia has tagged me on Instagram. Surprise pricks me like static. The post is a carousel. First slide is a Polaroid of a sunflower. Second is an open book annotated in 5 colors. Third is a screenshot of a Venmo transfer, $2,500 with the caption, "For the deposit I hijacked." Her comment beneath reads, "Late, but not never. Learning accountability the hard way." She disables comments. I stare at the screen until the battery warning pops up. The wind off the river snatches a tear before it can freeze on my cheek. That night, I craft a Reddit update answering the questions that flooded my inbox. Did Sophia apologize? Yes, publicly and privately. Did Jake refund my share? He tried. I declined, telling him to donate it to the animal shelter where we adopted his cat. Did I regret leaving instead of fighting? Leaving was fighting. I just chose a battlefield where my opponent had no map. The thread explodes again. Strangers recounting their own narrow escapes. Cousins thanking me for reminding them to read every clause before signing. Among the noise, a private message surfaces from someone claiming to be Jake's older sister, Ray. She writes, "He was always rescuing strays and abandoning himself. I'm sorry you got caught in that pattern." She attaches a childhood photo. Jake in oversized glasses, holding a trembling collie puppy. The puppy's name was Hero, she says, and it ran away the next week. Everyone looked for it, but Jake never found closure. I close the DM and sob for both of us. I meet Sarah for brunch at a cafe whose aesthetic is Pinterest exploded. She brings neon-colored highlighters and insists we color-code my boundaries on a placemat. Green, non-negotiables. Yellow, discussion. Red, automatic exit. The idea feels silly until I see the placemat filling with honest sentences. Green, my name belongs first on any legal document that governs my life. Yellow, exes can be friends if transparency is ironclad. Red, gaslighting disguised as empathy. The waiter asks if we're doing art therapy. We say yes, and order extra avocado toast because emotional homework deserves carbs. At night, I dream of the East River apartment as a labyrinth. Every door leads back to the master bedroom, where Jake and Sophia sit at opposite ends of the bed, tying knots in the same rope. When I wake, I book a rock climbing intro class. On the climbing wall, the instructor teaches me to find 3 stable points before moving. I think of relationships, only as safe as the number of solid holds you can vouch for. By the end of class, my forearms burn, but the ache feels earned, not stolen. A letter arrives from the landlord. An official apology for the confusion and a voucher for 1 month of free parking should I ever own a car. An olive branch carved out of bureaucracy. I laugh, picturing my dinosaur suitcase in its own luxury spot. Jake's last message comes on a Tuesday evening thick with city heat. He writes that he started therapy, that his savior impulses were armor against a childhood of never feeling enough. He doesn't ask for me back, he thanks me for the mirror. The final sentence reads, "I hope 2C treats you like the protagonist." I stare at the phrase until the letters blur, then archive the chat. Closure can be polite, I suppose. I repaint the thrift store chair a color called Firefly. The paint chips advertise glow under blacklight, a fact I discover accidentally when a neighbor's rave lights leak through the hallway. The chair glows like radioactive hope. I decide every hard conversation henceforth will happen seated there. Illumination mandatory. 6 weeks after the train ride, I host a housewarming small enough to protect my new oxygen. Sarah brings cupcakes frosted with Lease-shaped fondant toppers. My cousin Liz arrives with a toolbox declaring no woman should wait for a man to hang shelves. We build a bookcase, drunk on cheap cider and righteous independence. Someone asks if I'm dating. I joke that I'm currently in a committed relationship with myself. And we're taking it slow because I'm high maintenance. Later, alone, I open the windows and let the city sounds climb in. Somewhere a siren wails, somewhere music thumps, somewhere 2 people sign a lease in blissful ignorance. I send up a silent wish that they know each other's middle names and credit scores and secret fears. That they understand rescue is a joint venture, never a surprise party. Tonight, after the guests leave, I sit on the floor of my loft beneath the skylight and compose a letter to the woman I was 73 hours before the train. The Emily, who believed coffee and promises could lacquer over unease. I write in sprawling pen strokes because neatness feels dishonest. Dear almost me, you weren't wrong to love him. You were wrong to shrink when your instincts shouted. Remember how the perfume stung your nose? That was your body whispering, look closer. Next time, listen on the first syllable. I fold the letter and slide it into the hollow spine of an old paperback, the one Jake bought me at a used book fair because the author's name sounded like mine. The hiding place feels poetic, past lessons tucked inside secondhand stories. The apartment's stillness is thick but not threatening. From the kitchenette drifts the scent of basil I planted in a thrifted mug. I jot a grocery list on the fridge chalkboard. Olives, pasta, courage. The last one makes me laugh aloud. The echo brims in the room without judgment. Before bed, I water the basil and scroll the lease one last time, marveling at the singular column of information. Tenant, Emily Carter. Emergency contact, Sarah Halliday. Pet clause, open. One day I will adopt a dog. Maybe name it Hero after the collie that ran away so Jake could learn how abandonment feels from the other side. Sleep comes slowly, dreamless at first, then fills with images of paper turning to birds, flapping out of manila folders, scattering above rooftops. When I wake, the skylight is a rectangle of pale gold, and I swear I can smell ocean salt, although the shore is miles away. I brew coffee, my coffee, in a chipped ceramic mug with a fox illustration. The inbox is mercifully empty. The quiet between pings feels like a held breath I'm finally allowed to exhale. I open my laptop and start a fresh document titled, Boundaries Live Here, Docs. The first sentence, rescue yourself first. Everyone else must buy a ticket. I save and close before perfectionism can sabotage momentum. Outside, a delivery truck beeps. New neighbors drag suitcases across the hall. Laughter bouncing off walls. I consider introducing myself, decide the ink on my self-rescue still needs to dry. And that's the truth. Goodbye. Bye.